Welcome to The Human Element, presented by Whisk. I'm your host, Barb Bidan, and in each episode, I sit down with CHROs and senior HR leaders to explore how AI, innovation, and human insight are reshaping the future of HR. We'll explore how technology is reshaping leadership, strategy, and the role of HR by sharing candid stories, practical ideas, and strategic perspectives to help you shape the future. The Human Element is brought to you by Whisk, the leader in agentic HR and creator of Harper, the world's first AI HR generalist. Learn how Harper can resolve up to 80% of routine HR tasks autonomously. Learn more about Whisk at whisk.com. My guest today is Amanda Scott from Aon. Amanda is the CEO of North America Talent Solutions, where she is leading a team of over 500 advisors across rewards, career, and exec comp and data and assessment. In addition, Amanda is a PhD candidate studying AI in the workforce, so I could not be more excited to have this conversation today. Amanda brings both practical and academic perspective. She advises organizations while also researching how AI is reshaping work, jobs, and decision-making. So today we're going to get into what is real versus what is hype, where AI is already changing organizations and how they operate, and what leaders need to understand right now in order to move forward successfully. Amanda, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited about this topic. It's just something I'm extremely passionate about. So thank you very much for having me today.
Well, I am excited that I am going to get to explore the deepest and most geeky depths of everything that I am curious about with AI, because I know that you see a lot in the work that you do. Let's start off a little bit with you maybe sharing a bit more about your background and the role that you're in now.
Okay, perfectly. So maybe three things that don't necessarily come through in an introduction. One is that I absolutely love change. I love big transformation. I've had the opportunity to work with some really incredible large organizations on their global M&A, but just broader transformation work as well. And it's been a real privilege to partner with those clients in some of those moments of true turbulence and adjustment. Second thing to know about me is that I have a really global perspective and passion. I just moved back to the US after 18 years in London, but I've also spent time throughout my life. I studied international finance in India. I worked with a shaman in the Amazon. I looked at the magnesium industry in China. I worked all over Europe. So I love different people, different cultures, and I like bringing those perspectives into our work. And the third thing I assume you picked up on right now already is that I'm just very curious. So you mentioned I'm doing my PhD in the impact of AI in the workforce. And I started looking into this a couple years ago. I started the PhD about 4 years ago because I just think that there are some big macro impacts here that are at play. So I wanted to just look at it for fun. It's a bit of a hobby to get my PhD, but also I'm on a couple different boards as well to get different perspectives. I'm on a board for well-being and pensions, and I'm on a ballet board. So I just love learning. I love connecting with different people, and I like thinking kind of big and globally as well.
I love that, and I love the global lens. I think that's something that maybe we haven't talked about on the show as much. I'm Canadian. I live in the U.S. now, so I haven't lived in as many places as you have. But I think that a true global perspective is sometimes lacking in how we sort of boot up, especially for American headquartered companies. So I love that you bring that point of view. So I want to hop into some of the AI work and maybe starting pretty broad. When you are working with clients, what is the biggest limiting factor that you see in folks implementing AI, and how are you advising clients to overcome that?
So, Barb, you gave me the permission in the beginning to kind of nerd out about this. So I hope
Okay,
that's okay.
please. Yes,
I'd love
do
to
it.
start with maybe some numbers and some data to then root my observation. I think the big thing I'd say, and some research that we've done recently has shown that 75% of companies have AI. And candidly, 100% of people have AI. So I think we're probably under capturing how many organizations actually have AI at play within the company. But the interesting thing and kind of the contrast to that, three things. One is that only about 10% of people really know how to use it. Uh, 15% of people are incentivized to use this. And then only about 23 of organizations are actually bringing in external training to help them navigate and understand how they're using AI within the organization. I was on a panel back in January, and one of the things that we observed was AI is enterprise scale. It's ready, it's going, it's happening. So, what's limiting us? It's the humans. And the humans are absolutely the biggest limitation of implementing AI. And unless a person sees how they can evolve and where their role is going, option's going to be challenging and people are going to resist because it does create risks. Where is their job going? How are they going to have impact going forward? All of that is going to change, but the gap between the capability of AI and adoption creates risk within itself. So there's going to be a capability risk, there's a productivity risk, there's an equity risk. Organizations really do need to figure out how to get their humans on board with technology even more than they have in the past. But organizations need to get on board with humans in general. They need to think about how are those people going to play an important role going forward.
Totally. I actually think that some of the gaps that we have in change management that have always been there, right? Like HR teams are notoriously great for like developing excellent programs and then sometimes falling flat in the final mile, right? With change management and adoption and that sort of thing. And I think this transition with AI is really making that change management skills like glaringly obvious. I don't know if you're seeing similar that change management is taking on increasingly more importance with some of this work.
Absolutely. And I think organizations aren't thinking enough about really tactically, like, how is this playing out? So, we're working with organizations to think about within the structure of the organization, can we create a heat map of where AI is most likely to hit? So, what levels, what roles, and create that heat map of this is where AI is likely to be present for the organization. So, what we think about is we think about the job that people have. Within that job, there's lots of different tasks and skills that people are performing in the day to day. AI will come in and do some of those tasks and some of that work for those jobs. So now what? You have to think about how that reshapes the job. So if six of the things that that role were doing previously is gone or is being augmented or changed by AI, what's left? What are those four things that those people are doing that's still critical for the future? How do we combine those roles together so that we're creating new roles and we're elevating those people and we're creating those reskilling pathways so that people can see, well, yes, AI is going to do this part of my role, but I get to have this impact. I get to do this work. And here's where my role is going to the future. So helping organizations think about where AI is going to augment versus automate versus replace. What does that mean for that skill set and those reskilling pathways? How do we get people elevating so that they're growing as technology is growing capability as well? And how do we create those new roles and structures, but also think about compensation? Because as people's roles change, so does compensation. And how do we really think forward about the impact of all of this?
I could not agree more. And that's actually, I was very excited to talk about heat maps because I think we're throwing tools into the equation in a lot of places and maybe not taking the step back until we're right in it, right, to do this work. And so this is actually the reshaping work that I'm guessing you really are helping clients with today to think this through, which I could actually talk about this one for a lot longer. I'm curious, when you give practical advice, right, related to the heat map or adjacent, what advice are you finding yourself primarily giving organizations that are starting to look at these things or build the heat maps with you?
So, from my perspective, I think the thing to think about is that without data, you don't have AI. Because what is AI pulling on? It's pulling on data, it's pulling on existing insights. So, we really need to think about what is that data? How are we using that? So, that's where, and we've had a lot of fun because we have a lot of organizations' data. We have market data through our RMCD database, which is our compensation database. So, we can actually live benchmark and model out that impact for organizations very practically, not just within their four walls, but also thinking about their industry and thinking about their competitors and help them build a view of how AI can help them elevate and change their capabilities. So I think it's really important that we start with that analysis. So we've been doing this kind of AI sensitivity analysis, which is that heat map of where's AI showing up. Then we're starting to look at what jobs are most impacted. So what are your 3 or 5 or even 10 most impacted or changed or evolved roles that we need to think about? So that when we're looking at bringing in, we're building that plan for those humans at the same time. So going from a role that has high AI augmentation or evolution into roles that are much more aligned to human skill sets, and thinking about how do we move that workforce forward. But then also thinking about those kind of second order effects. So how does that change comp? What's the savings versus what's the growth? And thinking about that data. So I think very practically, it's getting your head around that AI sensitivity analysis. Second would be get your head around those jobs. But I think even more practically, the interesting thing that I've observed in organizations on this topic is that we're breaking down internal silos within organizations between HR, technology, executives, investments, shareholders, boards. Like, this is such a critical topic for all of those stakeholder groups that we need to work together and get those teams working together in ways that perhaps they've not worked so intensely together before. So we need to think about how do we break down those internal silos and get those people in a room having this conversation.
Completely. I actually think too, with when you break down the jobs and look at the tasks, right, that will be eliminated and start merging jobs together, jobs may not sit in the same silos that they do today, right? So it's even though so the breaking down of silos to do this work, but also what the work looks like after could look different, I think, in organizations. I know that you also advise senior leaders as well. What advice are you giving to C-suite leaders that you are working with as it relates to workforce changes?
We do a lot around executive compensation and board advisory and governance advisory. So, this is a topic that's quite close to my heart because right now is the moment for those executives to upskill on this topic. AI is putting pressure on all leaders to deliver productivity and agility and growth. And I just think that executives need to build their fluency on technology. They need to really understand their workforce and how AI is going to reshape that workforce, how it's going to change skills, spans, layers. You mentioned jobs. What does this look like and what are those trade offs? So, my advice to senior leaders in C suite right now is to get on top of it, get their head around where AI is going to present through that sensitivity analysis, know what jobs are most likely to be impacted and how they're going to reimagine those jobs because the board is asked. So if the executives don't know, the board wants to know. So I have to say, this is the moment for those budding C-suite or the C-suite that really wants to get closer to the board to take the opportunity to really partner with the board in a new way and provide those insights into what the organization's going to look like for the future, to provide that reassurance that there's a really sustainable model and value within the organization going forward as this is coming through.
Is there anything that you think is separating leaders who thrive through change of any type versus those who don't?
Curiosity. I think it's
Love it.
curiosity and the interest to learn and figure this out. Because the more we shy away from it, the bigger an issue it's going to be. But if you're able to think about this as your opportunity to do something that was previously impossible, just because you didn't have that scale or that speed to insight, now's the time. You've got to get on top of it. You have to be curious.
I agree. So I'm going to give you full permission to nerd out here as much as you want on this one, and maybe you can use your PhD research to give us all mini masters in some of the work that you're doing. So I would love it if you could share maybe a bit more about some of your broader research. I know you're working towards your PhD. What are you finding? What are you exploring? Tell me everything.
Yes. Okay. Um, so we've talked a lot so far about how this presents within a corporation, within an organization. What I started thinking about is how does this present in broader like labor economic impact? So when I think about that heat map and I think about an organization, within an organization, AI is most appearing at the junior levels and at the senior levels. So those are the roles that have highest AI exposure. So when I think about that and I look at what organizations are doing right now, oftentimes organizations are looking at the lower level uh, employee groups and eliminating them from the workforce, or they're just not sure what to do with them. So there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of risk at that lower level. When I look at the higher level employees that are also highly impacted by AI, they're elevating them because they're able to have more impact, do more, think bigger because of AI, and they're really enabled and driving growth in that space. So when I think about lower level employees coming out of the workforce, out of organizations, and higher level employees increasing in impact, I then think about compensation. So I think about the compensation heat map on top of that. So when you layer compensation on it, you have low paid employees coming out of the workforce. You have higher paid employees getting paid more. So when you think about that specifically, in Europe, for example, we do things around like executive pay ratios, CEO pay ratios. You have executives getting paid even more as a broad workforce, and you have junior employees coming out of the workforce. So that pay
Mhm,
ratio in broad society is actually widening. Then when you
mhm,
layer gender on top of this, when you look at the heat map of where male and female ratios tend to present, women tend to be in those more junior level roles, and men tend to be in more of those senior roles. So that distribution of the workforce and distribution of gender is also part of this. So when I think about pay and I think about gender, I think about women coming out of the workforce, and I think about male senior execs getting paid more. So as a broader society, what we're seeing is a widening gender pay gap as well.
mhm,
So where this
mhm,
comes into play and what I really, really hit home with organizations is that reskilling is not just important to keep workers, it's also important to keep that inclusion and that connectivity with the broad workforce. So now more than ever, reskilling and thinking about career pathways and bringing people through the organization is important.
totally. This makes me, I mean, there's two places I would love to go. Selfishly, I have two college age kids. And so as I think about that lowest level of the workforce being sort of the lowest skilled areas being replaced with AI in some ways, and a lot of people getting a little nervous about hiring early career, like new college graduates, that sort of thing. And then some companies actually doubling down on hiring, saying, no, 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 we've got a different thought. I'm wondering what your thought is on sort of what that next wave might look like for those coming out of school for the first time and into the workforce.
So I'm going to date myself by saying this, but when I joined the workforce, technology, Excel, all of that there were rumors that we would no longer need mathematicians or actuaries. And coming in as a pension actuary, there were rumors that Excel would replace the need for all of those analytical skills. And I have to say that that's not necessarily been the case. People that know how to use this technology. We need people that understand the technology in a way that we've never understood it previously. And I think that cohort, that workforce can help us elevate and bring that technology more seamlessly into the organization rather than being replaced by that technology. So we're going to need people that know how to manage those agents, that run teams of agents, that check the quality of the inputs and the outputs from those agents and that technology. So I just think that it's not going to look the same, but it's necessary. That group of people is absolutely necessary to the success of our businesses.
Right. And maybe not a topic for today. And I can go to my other question, but it's then also, right, what is the reskilling or the upskilling that needs to happen with those college age kids, right, that are coming into the workforce, and how quickly or not academia is keeping up with what they need to know, because they essentially have the same problem to solve that we have to solve in the workforce, I would think, right, is how do we what are the skills that these kids need, and being able to shift fast enough to have those graduates find good homes is something I am super fascinated by right now.
And I
But
think you're absolutely right. And I think maybe just my thoughts on that is that, and I was on a podcast with another CHRO recently, and we agreed that we are no longer building for stability, we're building for agility. And I just think that that is our role as HR, as businesses, and as we're thinking about the skill set we need from the future, that's exactly what we're building for, is those agile skill sets that people that will learn and grow quickly, because what they're learning right now will be relevant in 5 years' time or 10 years' time. So how do you create this culture of continual learning?
yeah, back to curiosity, right? I mean, if that is not a core skill, right? Like what you need to know, what you're going to need to know 10 years into your career, you have no idea what that even is today. And so curiosity has got to be key to finding that. Can I bring us back to the middle section of the workforce, right? So you talked about how executives are being elevated and equipped to basically move faster and better with AI. Bottom, we talked about they're like the most junior roles. What do you see happening with all the folks in the middle?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of confusion within the middle, to be honest with you, because they're not quite sure necessarily how both of those dynamics are going to play out. But I've seen some really incredible movements there too. So, the people that are embracing AI in this space, again, no matter where they sit in the organization, are going to play a really important role. So one of my senior leaders in my team has set up AI Club on a Friday. So Friday lunchtime, she's organized AI Club, and they bring different challenges or different things that they want to solve using technology, and have like a brainstorm or a build session together to try to address those questions and identify how do we move things forward. So I think that there's a real role that that middle level can play when looking at how work is getting done. And I think it's actually probably one of the most important roles in an organization, because we want to simplify processes. We want to rethink processes. We actually want to break processes that currently exist today and completely reinvent them in this new environment, so that we can move faster on a better process versus just taking old processes that were laborious and just speeding them up a little bit. We want to do things just completely differently going forward.
So if that mid tier of the workforce, right, remains curious and isn't resistant to where AI can help them grow, I think they've got the right context because they're close enough to the work, different from the executives who it may have been a bit since they've been close to the work, but they've got more experience than the most junior folks. And so I think it's like most exciting to me for that group as long as they do the right things, like make good decisions here, right? About curiosity and exploration. And some of those like brown bag sort of like lunch and learn things have been the best resource that we've had as well, right? Where people are, building something, building an agent to the extent that they can, and then bringing it together with peers. And then they're like adding it on. And then suddenly that agent is now being used in a different way for like three other areas of the function. And this is stuff that like I'm have happening in my team daily, to the point where now we're like showcasing multiple examples every month in our all hands, but the team is like running with it, which is awesome. And I just hope that everyone in that sort of mid tier with the education and the expertise to really evolve where things are going are like hopping in, and that employers are really encouraging that, because I think it's like when you start to see it happen, it feels very magical, how quickly you can evolve from my perspective inside an organization. Are you seeing something similar in your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I'm thinking about client engagements, I'm thinking about, okay, so we're working with the executives, we're looking at where AI is showing up, we're identifying the jobs that will evolve. And then we're thinking about, well, what processes do you want to redesign? How do we help you rethink how you're doing work today and who's doing that work? And remapping that out and thinking about what it will look like in the future. From our perspective, that's where we're starting to work throughout the entire organization and business leaders to really help them get their head around what this could look like going forward. So for us, that's been some of our favorite projects, is just thinking holistically about the organization from top to bottom and how all of this is coming together.
I warned you before we started that we could just keep recording for 3 hours if you want, and I could keep talking to you. So I don't know if anyone will watch a 3 hour long podcast. So I'm going to move us into our lightning round questions. But this has been fantastic. I've really enjoyed talking. So these are the quick hit questions for our audience. We always wrap up in this way. What is the biggest myth about AI job displacement? Do you think that it is true or false that is something that we're facing?
So AI is not replacing jobs. Humans are replacing jobs. Humans are making the decisions that we're going to eliminate those roles and those jobs. And that's where humans need to step up and think about reskilling, changing the profile of the organization, and being more imaginative about where we're going with these roles, so that we're not just taking the easy way out and cost cutting and saving, by not truly rethinking what those roles are and what they could look like to have a bigger impact.
Yeah, the humans making those calls need to own it and then do the work to actually rectify the problem by upskilling and reskilling teams, as you're saying. What is the one skill that no AI will ever replace?
So I'm going to say a word we've said actually several times already, is curiosity. I think that
Excellent.
humans need to keep asking questions, keep learning more, and I think that's a very human skill. And I'm excited to see what humans can do if we are really leaning into our curiosity.
Got it. So, PhD student by night,
Yeah.
Aon advisor by day.
Yes.
Which version shows up in a particularly hard conversation with a client?
So the reason I actually started doing my PhD was because of that curiosity, because I wanted to think forward. But also, as Aon, we sit on such a significant amount of data and insights into all of these organizations, and we have just this wealth of information. And so I wanted to think about, how do I academically ask better questions and create better insights of that data? So in those really hard conversations, I'm always thinking about that bridge between, all right, here's all the information and data we know about you. Here's how we can use that information to create better insights and answer those hard questions that you're asking of us. So I love that within my own, I have academics, I have labor economic experts, I have people that know how AI will present, but then I also have really just incredible advisors that know how to get insights from organizations and think forward. So from me, it's both. And actually, that's reflected within the teams at Aon is that we have both. We have people that really know how to get smart methodology and really incredible insights from data. And then we have people that know how to use that in real life situations so that we can answer complex problems.
Great. So, last one,
Mhm.
finish this sentence for me. The organizations that thrive in the AI era are the ones who blank.
We'll do the previously impossible.
I love it. So I don't know if you saw me scribbling frantically, but the way I wrap up the show is I try to synthesize in my human brain down to sort of three big takeaways, but there were actually like a million takeaways. So let me give it a whirl. So the first one I have is actually some of the data that you shared. And I just want to drop a few numbers that stood out to me that I just want to ask our listeners to like sit with and think about like what these numbers mean and what's behind them. And your comment about that we're underestimating where AI already is. 75% of companies have AI in place now, and 100% of people have AI, and only 10% know how to use it. That's sort of item one. The second is coming back to the heat map and the AI sensitivity analysis work that you are doing. I think we are, again, we've been in companies, we're trying to move fast, and so we're kind of throwing solutions at things. And what you talked about with the heat maps really got me thinking about the places where we also need to make sure we're stepping, like elevating a little bit, right? Looking at the jobs, looking at the duties and responsibilities of a job. What is going to go away? What is going to stay? How do those things recombine? That is really, really exciting work. And then also thinking about how that impacts compensation and your guidance there to look at like the 3, 5, or 10 roles that you think will be most evolved by AI. And so it's not overwhelming. I think for leaders, even starting there with that type of work could be really compelling, I think. And then last, I'm going to say curiosity again. This was your advice to executive leaders, but really to everyone, but to executives in particular. We have a lot of CHROs that watch the podcast. So get curious, build your own skills, and make sure you're doing the work to understand the biggest impacts that AI will have on your business, and really take ownership over where this is going to go within your organization. So we always give clients the last word, though. So I would love it if you could leave our listeners with, if you were talking to the HR leader listening today who just heard us talk, what would you love for them to think about on the rest of their drive home tonight?
So I think the thing I'd love for them to think about is to ask questions and just get a better understanding of really how this is going to work for their organization. So this is such a hot topic for us right now that we actually launched an AI workforce tour, an Aon AI workforce tour, so that we could meet as many organizations as we possibly could to help them think this through. Look at their heat map, look at the top jobs, think about how they take this forward. But for me, I think the really important part of all of this is the so what. What's next? What does that mean for you and your workforce? How are you going to reskill? What are those career pathways? How do we get our arms around our humans in a new and different way to take them forward and help them grow? So I think it's get your head around it, but then really think about the so what. What does this mean for the organization?
Such great insights. Thank you so much for joining me today, Amanda. It was so great to talk to you.
Thank you so much. This has been really fun, and I appreciate the opportunity to really nerd out. Thank you.
Me too. Me too. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on The Human Element, presented by Whisk. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow The Human Element wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Barb Bidan. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.